These chords are in the same order as I teach them in my free beginners course available at guitar.co.uk, where we've got heaps of real song lessons, taking you from absolute beginner, going right through to having a repertoire that you will be proud to play in front of your friends. Now we're going to start off with the E major chord. This is the first chord that I would teach any of my beginner students if they were in a private lesson. And I'm going to show you where to put your fingers for each one of these chords. So we're going to have your first finger in the area of the first fret, which is this area here. On the third string, which is 1, 2, 3, right there. And then we're going to have your middle finger on the second fret of the fifth string, and we're numbering the strings from bottom to top, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. And then your third finger needs to squash in directly underneath your middle one, like this, at the same fret, but that's on the fourth string. And then if we press down with your fingers, tips at a 90-degree angle, and we leave plenty of space here, so that we're not touching the bottom of the guitar, that should ring out really great.
My name is Hunter from MESA and begin hands-on experience with the beats and melodies.
Is that very loud?
Now these chords are called open chords because they include open strings. So we need to make sure that these open strings, specifically these thinnest two, are ringing out by not touching them with the underneath of your first finger or the palm of your hand here. It's really important that you get this first chord in really good form because it sets you up to be able to do all the rest of these chords, which we're going to learn from this E. The second chord is the A chord. This is our A major chord. Now what we did was, when we were on the first chord, we keep our first finger down, and we're going to call that our anchor finger. And we're going to slide that just over the metal strip that goes down over that metal fret, but keep it on the same string so it never actually lifts off. And we're going to move your middle finger just above at the same fret, but on the string directly above. And then your third finger goes directly below that string which your first finger is on. So essentially we've got 1, 2, 3, if we're learning this chord afresh. Now, because this is the second chord, we're actually going to strum the next string down. That makes sure
Something sounds off.
because this is the A chord.
You go, nah, mine goes,
The chords are in line with level 1 of my
is that
course,
fucking,
and that level is all about mastering the change between the E and the A by keeping that first finger down and sliding out.
Oh, so weak I can't even press it.
The next chord we're going to learn
God
is the D chord. So this chord again, we can keep our first finger exactly where it is at the same fret, but it would be great if we could move it this way just a little bit. Because when we're at this side of the fret, everything rings out a little sweeter than it does at this side. Everything sounds better when we're just here. And this is our D chord. A very bright, happy sounding chord. And we have your first finger. We've got your finger on the second fret of the first string. And then we make a little triangle shape by having our third finger on the third fret of the second string here. So 1, 2, and 3. And then we strum from the third string from the thickest one, because that is the open D string, so E, A, D, and then our first 3 chords. Nice and wonderful. To check that these chords are ringing out great, we want to do a strum with them, and then pick each individual string, and then do a final strum. So strum, pick, and strum. That way we're checking that there are no strings that sound a little bit like this. Okay, so if you've got any strings here that aren't ringing out for you, a great tip is to make sure you're on the tips of your fingers. You want to be right at 90-degree angle. Chord afresh. Now, because this is the second chord we've done, we actually want to strum it from the 5th string here, from the next string down. And that makes sure that we've got the lowest note as an A, because this is the A chord. Now, these first 2 chords are in line with level 1 of my beginner's course, and that level is all about mastering the change between the E and the A. The next chord we're going to learn is the D chord. So, this is the first finger, exactly where it is at the same fret, but it would be great if we could move it this way just a little bit, because when we're at this side of the fret, everything rings out a little sweeter than it does at this side of the fret. Everything sounds better when we're just here. And this is our D chord, a very bright, happy sounding chord. And we have your first finger, again what I've said before. We've got your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, and then we make a little triangle shape by having our 3rd finger at the 3rd fret of the 2nd string here. So 1, 2, 3. And then we strum from the 3rd string from the thickest one, because that is the open D string. So E, A, D, and then our first 3 chords. And then pick each individual string, and then do a final strum. So strum, pick, and strum. That way we're checking that there are no strings that sound a little bit like this. Okay, so if we've got any strings here that aren't ringing out for you, a great tip is to make sure you're on the tips of your fingers. You want to be right at 90-degree angle, and you want to make sure that none of your fingers are hitting the string underneath.
Oh, lordy, lordy.
Now there's a couple of variations of this G chord. I call this a big G. It can also be played like this, but I find it's best in the context that we're going to use it with the songs that you'll want to learn with these open chords, that we go for the 4-fingered G chord, which is also called a big G, because it's easier to change to a D chord, which is a really common change, G to a D, by keeping that 3rd finger down. So we've got the G chord, is the new one, and And then the D chord, you can see that third finger is now the anchor. And in fact, we can go from all these 4 chords, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, maybe you
And we
could.
never actually lifted off all of our fingers from the fretboard. We've always got one finger, we've always got that contact on the fretboard, which I think is middle finger, 3rd fret of the 6th string, the thickest one. And then it's a bit more of a stretch for your 3rd and little finger, which are both at the 3rd fret of the thinnest 2 strings. The middle 2 strings are open, so we want to make sure that when we dance, tips. And this G chord makes up level 3 of my free beginners course, which also includes the D chord and the A chord. It works between those changes. So that's our first 4 chords, which are major chords. These are happy sounding chords that can be summarized by saying just the G chord, for example. We don't have to say G major all the time. But the next 2 chords we're covering are minor chords. Now these are sad sounding chords, and if music is an expression of emotion, we kind of need the happy and the sad, and it's the mix that makes things sound really good. And these chords are actually, if anything, a little bit easier than a couple of the other ones.
Hallelujah.
The first one of which is the easiest. This is the E minor chord, which I encourage you to play with your first 2 fingers. So we have your first finger at the 5th fret of the 2nd string, and then your middle finger directly underneath it, leaving the thickest E string.
Holy shit! This is the first. This is the first parts to the ending of BoJack Horseman. Back in the 90s, I used to be a famous TV show. That's the first one I got.
Hold your fingers. The next one is the A minor. And
That was E.
Now this one's so easy because it's actually the same shape as the first chord that we learned, which was the E major. So this is our E major chord. And this down a string is suddenly a whole of a different chord, and it sounds sad. And we want to strum from our open bass, not strum that thickest E note, because this is an A chord, so we still strum from that A string. There aren't too many songs that use just minor chords, but there are a few, and they make up level 4 of my beginner's course. The final chord we're going to go for in this lesson is a C major chord. Now this was actually the first chord that my older brother taught me around 9 or 10.
How
and it's
sweet.
a little bit more of a stretch, so it's not ideal for an absolute beginner, but
Why are you showing it to me?
Used. And this is our C major chord. So we got 2 fingers where they
I'm already lost.
You want to pause it?
First finger
No.
Pause it.
No.
of the 2nd string.
Yeah.
Middle finger on the 4th string.
Yeah.
2nd fret.
Yeah.
And 3rd finger, bit of a stretch, 3rd fret of the 5th string. So we have 1, 2, 3. Give it a
Okay. Something ain't right. Alright, no freaking evil ads.
Look at you, rock star.
Levo emo my ass. Yeah.
Before I could use my mind to move a submarine.
What? Alright, now I want to go back.
It's quite tricky for a lot of people is to have your fingers on this angle. So if you're going for this chord and plenty of others, and have your fingers vertical along with the frets, so in line with the frets going down.
I'm not an alien, dude. I can't do that with my fucking ganglions.
Ganglions. Angle, so everything, all your fingers are basically curled up and pointing towards yourself.
Oh.
You'll find it a much more comfortable grip for your hands, and it can, in time, become second nature. That goes 1, 2, 3, and this is our C chord, which we would strum from string 5
Go.
all the way down.
1.
So if you were able to follow that video and play each one of those chords as we went through, you're really can't understand that. That's really fantastic. No matter if you found that an easy or a difficult exercise,
It was bloody difficult.
You want to practice it is exactly the same. And it
I
comes
don't
down
know
to
who
the
you think
changes
you're
between the
teaching,
chords
but you're
and
teaching
where
a
you
moron.
each one of the
Don't bloody
individual
understand.
and so forth. But the real trick to nailing these chords is getting your fingers to remember where to go more instinctively.
My fingers
having
don't
that
have
muscle
brains,
memory,
dudes.
and being able to get the changes between the chords, not just the chord
Enough.
themselves.
Well, that was guitar lessons with MESA TV. Alright. Bye. So sad.
Are you recording?